Tonight on Day by Day, all switched on. The scientists of tomorrow.
In addition to just good plain slog, there's a lot of very interesting and fun things going on in school. From Rochester in Kent, Mike Field reports on some of those sort of things.
No, you're not tuned to the wrong channel, and it's not Top of the Pops about to begin. It is, in fact, the special effects department of the Warrenwood Secondary School for Boys at Rochester. The disco is just one of the electronic inventions of science master Max Horsey and his eager young boffins. Simply everything in the lab is automatic, from the projection equipment and screen to the homemade air conditioners. They've even got their own internal telephone system.
A lot of the equipment here is wired up, not to prevent stealing, because there isn't very much anyway, but to prevent people forgetting to return things, which can easily happen. You slip something in your pocket and walk out. And if anyone leaves a piece of equipment off the racks, then as the door opens, we get a polite bleep, which reminds us it's been removed.
A lot of fun. Well, we may have missed the devolution.
It wasn't just a subject. Electronics at Radley was this entire world, this world of opportunity, creativity, ingenuity. You could do anything. You could make anything. Went and found all your components from these vast racks on the walls that seemed to go on forever. Very carefully, very meticulously, without burning your tie, made your device. And invariably it wouldn't quite work, and so the fault finding began. But Max would help you. Every so often we'd sort of get a bit chatty and we'd start messing around a bit and talking, and after a few minutes nothing was happening. He would come over and say, "Come on, striving forward, pushing forwards." He wouldn't ever let things slip. He wanted to make sure we were making progress. And I think he used those exact words almost.
I knew Max primarily from his work in electronics. I was often in the electronics workshop making different kinds of circuits for different hobby projects. Max's enthusiasm for electronics was totally infectious. The workshop was very well stocked. Of course, it had all the latest equipment and components and programmable microchips, but it was also very well stocked with chocolate. At some point in the middle of a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, the Twirls or some other chocolate bar would appear, and Max would sense when people's energies was flagging and needed an extra boost to carry on working on their projects. That's just one example of the great atmosphere he cultivated in electronics.
This room was a hive of activity with lots of boys in here, either using the video unit or in fact actually manufacturing little electronic projects. I can remember umpteen times walking in here, and there was loads and loads of boys all milling around, and Max was just keeping calm control over everything, and everybody absolutely loved it.
Just a great person to be around and learn from. The time spent in the lab was a golden time, I think, for me. I can honestly say every time I walked into the electronics lab, I sort of felt this wave of excitement as I crossed the threshold. Every time in the 5 years I was there. It was created by Max. It was him. He brought it to us. He gave up so much of his time, and he made that world, really prepared us for the future.
When I arrived at Radley Video, which was kind of like via my brother Josh, who had started 2 years before me, it was obviously run by Mr. Horsey. We called him MPH. and it was a club that people could join basically to learn how to make videos, and primarily we were making videos about like theatre productions and concerts happening at Radley, but also it was kind of a business in itself, and it was filming productions at other schools and then selling the videos of those productions to parents.
So I joined Radley in 6-1, fresh off the airport from Moldova. Not really, it was bewildering, all this, first time boarding, first time in the UK, first time in a boys only school, first time in so many things. And I heard there's a video unit at Radley, and I thought, well, you know, how big, and it's a school club, surely, but I'll give it, I should do it. And as soon as I went there and I realized this is much bigger than what I expected a school video club could be. And he gave me a tour. And that was the one place where I didn't feel like I was in an outside world. Not to say Radley was a very welcoming place, and as welcoming as a place like that can be, there was a learning curve because everything was entirely new. I mean, cars are driving on the other side of the road all of a sudden, just these small details. But it was in that under the stairs cupboard, really, can't even call it a room before the big studio was built. That I would go there, and it would be a sort of moment of respite that I actually just feel a bit in my element, and that was very important, very helpful for me at the time.
Well, one of the other really wonderful things was that once you'd filmed something and you were so proud of it, he would then show how you know, his generosity, and he'd take us out to McDonald's, and then or take us for a pizza, and then we'd go and we'd sit and we'd watch back what we'd done. And it was so nice. I think he is probably the embodiment of what a school teacher should be.
For those that knew Max, he was particular about being clean. And one story I can recall was we went to McDonald's, probably during chapel, and on the way back, Max decided that he had to check whether his burger was correct. Why this couldn't have waited till we got back to school, I don't know. And as he opened the box, the burger almost magically went everywhere. And so keep in mind, we're going about 40 miles an hour down an A road on our way back to Radley. And there's tomato across the car, there's cheese on the window, and there's a burger in his lap. And it was just one of those moments where you saw Max's true colours come through, and it was just a good laugh.
Max was an inspiration to me. Without him, I certainly wouldn't be who or where I am today. That basement room was our little oasis, with Max at the helm, teaching us how to be kind, how to be respectful, how to be inquisitive, how to be ambitious. He gave us agency, which I think is quite difficult in the school environment. Agency to learn, but also agency to be heard. I remember we'd go on trips together to London Expos to find the latest equipment, which we'd often convince him to buy and come back with. But by far my favourite memories with Max are when we filmed Sherlock together. It was a big project. It took 2 years, just before my GCSEs. And it was an incredible time where you could see the team which we built of 10 people. He nurtured all of our passions for being creative. He taught us not to follow a stereotype, but to sort of go after our dreams and to make our own paths in life. And that's certainly what I've decided to do since. He cared about his film students more than anyone, more than anything. And I certainly owe an enormous amount to him.
Max was a quiet and rather wonderful man. He never formally taught me at school, but through a kind of persistent, quiet enthusiasm and what I would almost call a kind of vicarious tenacity, Max really got alongside me and taught me a lot and was endlessly generous and That started in about 1993 when we were trying to make a first film, which we ended up making. It was called Genesis 96, and Max seemed so proud of having been involved in that process, and he was so curious at the process that we were kind of going through, and it was so encouraging. And I remember standing with Max in Covered Passage after we'd finished the film, and he'd made about 50 VHS copies. He was keen to try and sell them in Covered Passage, and we didn't sell many, but he stood with me for an hour or so. And it meant a lot that he was so invested in that creative process.
Next week, during the lunch hour, we are presenting our giant video sale. Your chance to own any of these famous videos, such as Genesis 96.
I remember being sat at this desk in March 2020, wondering how on earth to deal with the challenge of COVID. Like many schools, indeed many businesses, we had to make difficult decisions about which staff to furlough. And for some bizarre reason, Max originally was on the list of staff to be furloughed. He wrote a polite email to HR suggesting that he might be of use to Radley during COVID. That was the understatement of the century. During those difficult months, the thing that connected us with the outside world, indeed, was the work of Max and his team. And that, of course, is just one demonstration of everything Max did for Radley over decades.
I came back to Radley in the last couple of years, and Max was still filming, and I found myself asking myself why, as someone that runs a TV production company, Max had better equipment than we do. And he was, as ever, whenever I saw him, and I saw him many times over the years, just a curious, inquisitive, thoughtful and encouraging and lovely person. And I will really miss him.
I think it's very easy to have a hierarchical dynamic at a school, but everyone he met he treated as an equal, no matter if you were a Shell or a Don or anything. So yeah, he was just so kind and supportive, even though we had no idea what we were doing with these very expensive cameras. My whole applying to film school, everything wouldn't have happened if I hadn't met him. I've never met a teacher, or very few people, who had such a profound impact on kind of what I've done and who I've become. When he died, I was thinking a lot, and I was just kind of thinking God, I hadn't realised, I'd realised, but I hadn't truly realised how much of what he'd said and what he taught me and just how he'd been had really stuck with me to this day and still influences me now. Yeah, no, he was a really special man and just a really kind man too.
So we had a relationship with a local opera group, Opera Anywhere, if you remember them. The whole idea, because it's Opera Anywhere, was they'd do it in very unusual locations, which obviously meant that Max had to get his cameras and film in those very unusual locations. But the one that I remember very vividly was in Sunningwell village, kind of about a couple of miles from Radley. Literally just before it started, a bird made a mess on his shirt. And again, anyone who would know Max would obviously remember that he did not like dirt, liked things to be clean. And one of his greatest fears in life was having a bird mess on him. And he was like, oh my God, well, we're gonna have to go, get in the car. And I was like, well, it's about to start. So he raced back to his house, left me in the car, ran in, and then came out about a second later in a completely new shirt. And as we drove back, I said to him, oh, did you, what did you do with the shirt? He said, oh, I had to bin it. I said, well, why couldn't you have just put it in the washing machine? He said, well, then I'd have to bin the washing machine. And so that was the most obvious conclusion.
I think when I heard the news, I hadn't quite processed how much he was part of my time at Radley. I think because, because he was so regular and I saw him, once, twice, 3 times a week, if not more, it just became a sort of part of the everyday and something I probably took for granted. And now I've been able to reflect on sort of what it was and part of it, the escape that it was. Radley's a very busy, it's a very intense, 24/7 place. And I think just to be able to, retreat from time to time to that little, cubby hole in the new theatre was just great, and just felt very separated as well. Getting to know people in different years and different socials, it was just slightly detached, and just fantastic memories and experiences and support, all the way through. I think he just remained that constant throughout the 5 years.
The lower theatre foyer was always a really busy place when Max was here. He had an office that was the old cloakroom, but all his equipment and the number of boys that he had in the office meant that it literally burst through the walls and took up most of the lower foyer. But it was always a really happy place. Max made sure that he was always here to film every single play, musical, competition, event, and it was always done to such a high standard, and he trained his crew up so well that it was always extremely slick and professional. We even attempted a socially distanced filmed musical during COVID. So we had to create the illusion that there was a full cast of 45 performers on stage, but we were only ever allowed 8 actors on stage at one time. So it was quite a mission to try and put this musical together. But of course, with Max and his brilliant team, we were in safe hands, and we did manage to put together a musical for the COVID year.
My favourite thing that I've been involved with was the filming of Les Mis. It was quite an ambitious project that we set out to do. We had 7 cameras filming, a separate team next door that we'd hooked up the live feeds from the cameras. It was really apparent that Mr. Horsey was in his element throughout that project, combining his love for cameras and also filming one of his favourite musicals, which was Les Mis.
Mr. Horsey regularly talked about his time and experience driving his boat around the Bournemouth coastline. Last year, when we were filming the first date, he was driving the launch and there was 2 of us on board. He drove quite quickly over a wake and accidentally nosedived the boat, drenching everyone and every camera on board. We found that very amusing. He, not as much.
I think Radley Video has completely revolutionised what I thought Radley was going to be like. So one of my favourite projects is Remembrance, and the video behind me is actually showing Remembrance 2024. This is only possible due to the mentorship and support of Mr. Horsey. I'll be forever grateful for what Mr. Horsey has done for me.
What attracted me to Radley Video was the variety that was offered. It wasn't purely a school film unit. There was the opportunity to divulge in all of our interests. I had the opportunity to film a video about the Radley Chapel, which I co-directed with Max. And it was fantastic being able to work alongside him. With his wealth of knowledge and expertise, we put together an encompassing film about the expansion of the Radley College Chapel, which was incredibly rewarding for me, especially at that time in my schooling career, to be able to put together a product like that and say, yes, this is something I delivered and created. And Max was instrumental in supporting that.
A project that Max and I worked closely together on was my first short feature film, The Last Adventure. We worked together on making the script and planning all of the production dates. He put so much time into it, whether it be on the weekends, late at night when I'd send a revision of the script. He was always there to support me, and that's meant so much to me, and I'll forever be grateful for that. One of the days during the production that really stood out to me was when Max travelled all the way down to Cornwall to watch us filming. I planned that scene for so long with him, and it was really touching that he made that effort to come down and watch it, still giving guidance and little tips about what we could do better, even on the other side of the country. And it meant a lot to me and everyone else on the production crew. Max's influence on me went further than just my time at Radley. Because of his support and passion for film being so infectious, I now want to do that as a career. And I'm sure that if it wasn't for him, I would be doing something completely different.
Genuinely a servant of the college, a servant of every aspect of the college. He touched everybody's lives. So they're in the classroom, on the sports pitches, in the theatre, in the concerts. It was Max and his team, always proud of his boys, always self-effacing, but Max and his team recording what we did and connecting that with the outside world. Of course we're grateful to him for what he did, but we're more grateful still for how he did it, modelling the very best of Radley over all his time. Everything we know about Radley and everything we feel about Radley is exemplified in Max and what he did.